Devil May Cry 5. The best way to summarize this game, it's probably the most overrated action game of all time. Now calm down. Before you go disliking the video and leaving me hate comments, at least hear me out and let me elaborate, okay? Devil May Cry 5 is still a decent game at the end of the day, and still does actually have a really good combat system, well, for the most part. But that's the thing, literally everything outside of the actual combat is literal pig vomit. From the atrocious level design of walking down generic hallway number 545 to generic static flat combat arena number 369 to the muted and washed out colors and being forced to play as dogshit characters like V, which is literally, and I'm not even joking, nor is this an exaggeration, where you literally just spam both the square and triangle button at the same time, rotating the analog stick either up and down or in a circle to always achieve a triple S rank. Honestly, the more I play Devil May Cry 5, the more I realize and the more it further pushes my belief that it's literally just DMC4, but worse in nearly every aspect, especially since I just went back and replayed all the DMC games back to back, starting with 1 and including the reboot all the way up to 5. I can safely say 5 is the most overrated, and again, just a downgrade of 4, again, in nearly every aspect. I'd honestly put 3, 4, and even 1 above 5. Maybe putting 1 above 5 is a hot take, I don't know, but DMC 1 is genuinely a better game, and like I have very little complaints about that game overall. I'll obviously get more into this and also comparisons further into the video, so again, calm down little Timmy before you dislike my video, because we both know your ass's first DMC game was 5, and that seems to be the reoccurring theme with 5 Glazers, is that if it's your first DMC game you have played, you unironically believe it's better than the rest, despite literally never playing any of the other games. It's the same thing with the Monster Hunter World, or even for the non-existent and extinct Monster Hunter Wilds Glazers. You know, Capcom makes new game that appeals heavily to the West and the modern audience. Well, that's the best game in the series now, obviously, and the older games are just quote-unquote outdated, dude, which is just a term that is thrown around for any older game at this point and has lost all of its fucking meaning and definition, okay? Let's be honest.
Real talk.
So once you boot up this game, you're greeted with a login bonus, because we obviously need a login bonus for a single player fucking game, which, let's just be real, okay? Let's just be honest, is quite stupid. But that's not even the worst part of it, okay? The worst part is that they removed all items in this game. Yeah, you guys remember Vital Stars, which would heal you up, or Devil Stars that would refill your Devil Trigger, or how about Holy Water, which would nuke all the enemies on the screen? Yep, all deleted and gone, despite literally being in every single DMC game prior. Despite how badly I talk about the shitty reboot, at least that game still had Vital Stars and Devil Stars at the end of the day. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, that's a good thing then, so now you actually have to learn the game and can't just cheese each boss with like 30 Vital Stars and 10 Holy Waters saved up. Wrong. Completely fucking wrong. Because now instead of having to open up a menu and select the healing item, which was actually strategic since if you were low on HP and so was the boss, you had to make the decision, okay, should I, waste a healing item so I can guarantee beat this boss, or try to beat the boss without healing with the possibility of dying and having to start the entire fight all over again? Well, that decision making is completely removed in DMC 5 in place for, I'm not even joking, infinite lives, infinite continues. You die, well, you just waste a gold orb, which you probably have at least a dozen, probably maybe even triple fucking digits at this point of them, and just replenish your health completely and your Devil Trigger. There's no real consequence to using 20 continues on a single boss or mission other than, wow bro, I got a D rank, wow, who the fuck cares? There's no sense of failing or losing, since again, you basically get infinite gold orbs, and even if you run out, which is pretty much impossible since they give you so many, but yeah, if you run out of gold orbs somehow, you can just use red orbs to buy even more extra lives. You can even buy the red orbs for real money. Gotta love modern day Capcom, am I right? Literally pay to fucking win. But yeah, this wasn't a problem or issue in the previous games, since you were limited to a total of 3 gold orbs, not fucking infinite. But yeah, enough complaining about the shitty continue system. Let's hit the new game button, and wow, would you look at that? It's Morrison from the Devil May Cry anime. No, not that shitty Netflix one, but the old one. Wait, but what's this? Oh my god, like he seems to have gotten an increase in melanin, like I don't know, which I'm sure I'm already pissing, somebody off out there for bringing this up and mentioning it, but why did they race swap him? Because DMC has no black characters, is that why? So Capcom, in their infinite wisdom of appealing to the West and the woke dipshits, race swapped a white fucking character. I guess Trish doing blackface in Devil May Cry 4 wasn't good enough for them. But yeah, for any retards who think I'm just being a nitpicky little bitch right now, I'm not, because around this time, and in case case anybody has forgotten, was when Capcom started appealing much harder to the West, with games like Monster Hunter World releasing the previous year, and in January 2019 they released Resident Evil 2 Remake, which is where they heavily toned down Claire, made her much more of a girl boss and giving her a more vulgar and sailor mouth.
I swear to God, my brother is stars and I don't listen to him, he's full of shit. He'll get you, you fucker!
What an awful, terrible, horrible thing to say.
And when did Devil May Cry 5 release again? Oh yeah, that's right, just a few fucking months later. Coincidence? Obviously not. We don't believe in coincidences, okay? But I'm sure I'll get people in the comments calling me a racist for noticing the patterns for bringing this up. But yeah, moving on. We are then introduced to our 3 protagonists of this game and 3 playable characters, that being Dante, who has been pushed to the sidelines since 4 in favor of our new protagonist Nero, and also Ronnie Radke from Falling in Reverse, aka V. So we started the game as Nero, much like in Devil May Cry 4, but this time he's missing his arms since some hooded figure from Organization 13 grabbed Nero's devil arm and tossed his ass across the room, which I don't know, I feel like this is just kind of stupid, you know. I'll just be honest. Like, Nero has defeated all those demons in 4 and kicked all of that, you know, demon ass, and he just gets his arm grabbed so easily, gets his buster arm taken because he was caught off guard. Like, give me a break, I'm not buying it. This is just dog shit writing right here, which I won't go like super in detail with the story since I don't really care too much about it, nor do I really like it that much if I'm going to be honest. Also, you'll notice Nero mentions Kyrie from DMC4, which he'll actually call and talk to her a few times throughout the game.
Hey, you two! Dinner's ready!
Be right there.
Hello? Nero? Is that you, Nero? Did something happen?
Kyrie.
However, you never actually get to see her. I guess Capcom was too lazy to model Kyrie into DMC5, but maybe that's more so a blessing in disguise with how ugly and how horribly they butchered Trish and Lady, especially from their DMC4 designs, which again ties back into the Morrison race swapping from earlier, and this was the beginning of the end with Capcom and their uglification of women. Like, it clearly hasn't taken full effect just yet, but you can see the slow changes that were taking place between the games, all the way coming up to the modern year of 2025. Like, they could have so easily shown Kyrie at the end of the game, but they didn't. Like, you compare the ending credits sequence of like 4 and 5 and it's night and day. In 4, Nero has to save his, you know, woman Kyrie and has to protect her from taking damage from the demons. And in 5, the ending credits says you on a generic street, which you've literally been on for a third of the game fighting demons. Wow, how interesting, how amazing. Like, they could have integrated Kyrie into the story to have Nero have to fight for something and just have that on the line. But yeah, no, Kyrie alone is enough to make this an inferior version to 4. Let's just be real, okay? Let's keep it a $1.33. Kyrie is a top tier waifu and is the ideal woman. Let's just be real.
You know, everything Latina Parfait he says is based and correct.
But anyway, since you get your Devil Bringer taken in 5, I'm not even joking, you don't get it back till the very last mission. Same with your Devil Trigger. You know, that feature that has been in literally every DMC game since the beginning and that you would unlock relatively early on. Like in 4, for example, I think you unlock it in mission 6 or 7. Meanwhile, DMC 5, no Devil Trigger for you. Beat the game. You have to beat the game for that fucking basic feature that has been in every game prior. Like, I get this shit is tied to the story, but it just makes playing as Nero on your first playthrough that much worse, since he's already a toned down Dante, as Nero doesn't get styles or style switching, nor does he get any weapons other than his Red Queen and Blue Rose revolver, which you'd think in the sequel they would expand upon that, but nope. I mean, they added some extra moves, obviously, but at the end of the day, you're still limited to only one sword and one gun. Now, in place of being able to use your Devil Buster to grab enemies, which was significantly nerfed, by the way, everything from animations to damage output, such as, for example, most of the new grabs are just very lazy and just suplexes, where in DMC4, each of Nero's grabs were actually unique and really fucking cool, like the knights where you'd use their own lance to thrust it into them and like you'd send their body flying, or the fire doggos that you could literally shoot out a fireball from, the flying sword enemies that you'd toss at other enemies, and even the blades or assaults where you'd spin them in a circle, damaging and knocking back everything around you. Meanwhile, in 5, there's next to zero impact for the grabs, and grabbing the lizard enemies in 5 basically has the knockback of a fucking pool noodle. On top of all of this, Nero's Devil Trigger depletes while you're mid-grab, whereas in DMC4, your Devil Trigger would actually stop until the animation is complete, as to not waste your DT. But anyways, in place of removing your Devil Bringer for literally 99% of the fucking game, you get Devil Breakers, which are various different consumable arms that you can acquire throughout the missions and you buy from the Space Toucan disgusting tattoo tattoo-infested, annoying, obnoxious country accent Nico, which also smokes all the time because apparently women who smoke are now attractive. I don't know. But yeah, Nico or Nicotine is the worst DMC girl by a country mile. The fact that Nico replaces Kyrie should be a war crime on humanity. Like, this alone, like I said before, makes DMC 5 objectively worse than 4. But anyways, the Devil Breakers are, like I said, consumable arms that replace your hand or your Devil Bringer, and they each have different abilities or gimmicks. For example, Overture does this big electric explosion, which actually does a shit ton of damage. Gerbera, which is one of my favorites, is basically Nero's Trickster, which I'll get more into later when I go over Dante. It allows Nero to essentially get an extra jump or send an enemy upwards. It's quite good and quite versatile. I prefer Gerbera GP01 though, which allows you to do a downward thrust to get back to the ground quicker when you're airborne, or to, like, you know, send an airborne enemy to the ground instantly. Punchline, which sends out a rocket that you can ride. Helter Skelter, which has a pierce effect and good for enemies with shields. Tomboy, one of my personal favorites, that allows Nero to basically give his sword infinite exceed and makes it so your sword is always on fire. It actually changes up your melee combos and even allows you to shoot fire from it. I wish more of the Devil Breakers actually switched up Nero's swordplay like this, as again, he is limited to only one weapon. Buster Arm, which is basically this Devil Bringer arm from DMC4, and actually does more damage than your Devil Bringer once you unlock it. Rawhide, which is a whip and good for crowd control, and Ragtime, which is a throwback to the Bangle of Time from DMC1, which allows you to slow down time. There's also DLC Devil Breakers, which were included in the deluxe edition, meaning cut content from the full release that the greedy fucks at Capcom charged you for despite it being in the game at fucking release, which of course they would cut content and sell it to you for day one DLC. It's Capcom at the end of the day. What did you fucking expect? They love money. They're money hungry. They're literally Mr. Krabs, and they also love scamming their consumers and player base. But yeah, the Mega Buster, which is Mega Man's arm and allows you to shoot Mega Man bullets. Sweet Surrender, which is a reference to Kyrie, which is the only Devil Breaker, by the way. It actually restores your health. You can either get a passive healing from it, which is pretty fucking slow, or instantly break it and restore 3 health chunks, which is pretty scummy when you really think about it, since they removed items and Nero has no real way of healing for the entire game, since you don't get Devil Trigger till the literal final mission, which if you don't know, yeah, Devil Trigger gives you a passive healing effect, and you don't get Vital Stars since, you know, they obviously removed them, like I said. So if you want to heal, for example, other than, you know, having to rely on enemies dropping green orbs, which is the only way you'd be able to get your health back, you need this specific Devil Breaker, which was cut out of the game and sold to you for day one DLC, which again is extremely scummy, and more people need to call out Capcom out on their bullshit. Pasta Breaker and Monkey Business, and then there's also Gerbera GP01, which is a slightly different Gerbera. That's all the DLC Devil Breakers. So surely Nero having so many different Devil Breakers to choose from makes up for, you know, his lack of one single weapon and one single gun. Wrong. As I said before, these Devil Breakers are all consumables, and you can't actually pick which one you want to equip. Instead, how it works is you can hold up to 8 of these Devil Breakers, and each time you pick up a new one, it adds it on top of your current or equipped Devil Breaker. So I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, okay, so how do I swap between my different Devil Breakers that I have in my inventory? Like, what if I need Helter Skelter to take out a Sin Scissor? Or what if I need my Buster Arm to grab the boss? Well, too bad. You need to break your currently equipped Devil Breaker to access your next one. And if the next one you have in line isn't the one you need to break that one as well. Which when you break these Devil Breakers, they are gone and removed entirely from your inventory, which is obviously quite retarded. Nero is obviously meant to be more beginner friendly compared to Dante, but even still, not being able to switch to any breaker you want is just stupid and really does limit his overall potential in gameplay. Like, obviously it's meant to be strategic since you're supposed to equip them in order you think you'll need them, but that doesn't really matter whether it's intended to be strategic or not, since it's just a bad mechanic at the end of the day. What's also really annoying about Nero is after every single mission, you're going to need to re-equip and or buy more Devil Breakers from Nico, and each time you do this, you have to manually equip each Devil Breaker one by one, which becomes quite tedious, obviously. This could have been completely fine if they just added a simple loadout system which allows you to equip a loadout with the press of a single button. Nero's other core mechanic is revving up his sword through using his Exceed, which is basically just means you press L2 right at the end of each attack to build up Exceed, and depending on how much you have, whether it's 1 level, 2 levels, or max Exceed, you'll do a different or varying amount of fire damage. Since this mechanic builds up fire onto your sword, you can also rev up manually by pressing L2 outside of combat, or just moving around, or just spamming the L2 button. This mechanic has been much simplified compared to DMC4. In that game, you need next to perfect timing to rev up your sword. Now in DMC5, it's much more lenient and forgiving with its timings, which I don't really know if that was necessary since Nero is already quite easy to play, so dumbing down his only mechanic, which separates, players with and without skill, probably wasn't the smartest idea. But that obviously was intended, as DMC5 is much more casual in its difficulty, and also just playing the characters. Dante also being much more easy to play compared to DMC4 Dante, which you basically needed to get a PhD in demon hunting to be good with him in DMC4. Now in DMC5, it's still a bit difficult, but far less difficult to play compared to 5. But yeah, Nero is fun to play. I like Nero for the most part. I mean, aside from his new dog shit design, like I really hate what they did to Nero with his haircut and this more realistic looking face, which for me personally, probably more so also factually, because obviously everything I say is based and correct, obviously.
Oh, everything Latina Parfait he says is based and correct.
I'm getting sick of the RE engine. Like, it just can't do faces, and I'm just so sick of so many modern games going for realism because normies love that shit. I miss the edge Kino graphics and anime art style of DMC 1, 3, and even 4. Like, it just fits Devil May Cry so much better and just looks overall so much cooler. And it's just one of the bigger problems of Devil May Cry 5 is just the lack of color in any and all of the environments. Everything is just boring to look at. Even Nero's jacket barely looks blue. Same with Dante's. He's supposed to be wearing a red coat or jacket. Yeah, this shit is the furthest color from red. Then on top of that, obviously, Dante looks like a fucking hobo in this game. But anyways, like, why do normies love this shit devoid of color? Is it because they themselves are devoid of color and any personality? Yeah, probably. That's why they love this soulless slop. It's like flies being attracted to shit. Normies are attracted to this dog shit realism instead of actual cool art styles, which is what DMC had before. The previous DMC games had actual style. And with games like Onimusha in development and also using the same dog shit realistic art style, I doubt we're going to ever head back to games with unique and interesting art styles. This shit is going to stay for as long as normies keep consuming the slop. And that being said, hopefully the new Onimusha game won't be dog shit, but to be honest, I don't have high hopes and have my expectations incredibly low, as you should also. But anyways, the game opens up inside this demon tree thing called a Clyfoth or some shit, and it's basically where half the game takes place, and it's quite visually boring, as you can see, which is basically this entire game. No interesting or cool set pieces, just boring locations. But anyways, you fight some bugs and battle your way up to Chair Urizen and see Dante getting his ass kicked because obviously he needs to be made to look like some pushover compared to Urizen, which have fun fighting this dogshit boss multiple times. Basically, this is a static boss, and in order to damage him, you need to hit this stupid crystal thing until it shatters, which it has a shit ton of health, and then after that, you can finally damage Urizen. It's about as fun as it sounds. You just dodge lasers trying to kill it, and that's pretty much the entire boss fight, which having to do this once is already bad enough, but doing it like 3 times is just kind of pathetic. Like, you're not supposed to kill him the first time during the prologue mission, and if somehow you do defeat him, which pretty much is impossible if this is your first playthrough of the game and you've never played the game before, as you only get 6 health and no devil trigger or devil break your arms, you'll probably most likely not be able to beat this shit. But yeah, you get your ass beat, and we get a flashback to like a month ago, which this game does a lot of flashbacks, which is kind of annoying. So now you're in the mystery van with the new DMC girl, that being Nico, which I've already brought up, and after that you get a little opening cinematic or some like music video where the theme song of the game plays Devil Trigger. Which I'm just going to say this right now, Devil Trigger is an okay song, but it does not fit DMC at all. I don't give a shit if it fits into the story of the game or not, it just doesn't fit the tone of Devil May Cry. It's like if they were to add a Taylor Swift song or some shitty Imagine Dragons song, like that shit just doesn't fit. Listen to Devils Never Cry, Cerberus theme, Shall Never Surrender, Lock and Loaded, or any previous song in the series, and you'll see the drastic difference between those songs and the new pop song, Devil Trigger. The fact that this is the most popular DMC song and not Devils Never Cry should tell you just how brain dead and tasteless the new modern DMC, audience and community is. And it only reinforces my belief that these mouth-drooling fucking retards only played 5 and shill for this game and calling it the best DMC game despite, again, never playing any previous game. And if they did or do play the older games like 1 or 3, they're usually like, bro, but dude, I can't combo somebody in the air for like 5 minutes straight like in 5, so therefore it's a bad game, dude. It's a bad game. I can't combo combo for 5 hours straight. And that makes me want to talk about this whole stupid fucking idea of more complexity or more combos equals better game. It doesn't matter how complex a game is or how many flashy over-the-top combos a game has if everything else falls short or if the other core aspects of the game are shit. Yes, the older games obviously don't have anywhere near the amount of autistic aerial combos of 5, but that doesn't mean they are worse, nor does it make them bad. Style switching every 0.2 seconds isn't what makes a DMC game good. There's way more factors involved, such as the level design, the actual style and the mood of the game, the music, all that being what, you know, DMC 5 lacks and also being shit. DMC 1, despite being the least combo heavy, is still a great game at the end of the day. You're quite limited in the combos you can do, but you're still able to chain together different attacks or cancel attacks into other attacks. At the end of the day, it gets the job done, and there is more to the game than just the combat. Look at a game like Dark Souls or Elden Ring, for example. Those games have very limited combat or combo systems, typically just pressing the same button over and over. Those games don't have delayed attacks or aerial combos, but would adding that shit make Dark Souls or Elden Ring better games? Probably not, because what they make up in lack of combos, they make up for in terms of enemy variety and other aspects such as the level design or interconnectivity of like the worlds, such as in Dark Souls 1. If Dark Souls 4 or Elden Ring 2 came out and they added a shit ton of combos, but they scrapped the good level design and cut out half the enemy types, would it be better? Obviously not. And that's essentially DMC 5. They scrapped everything outside of the combat. It's the same thing with DMC 1. Each enemy has its own weaknesses and strengths. Not to mention, it makes those games far more strategic in how you go about dealing with each of the enemy types. Also, this isn't just some skill issue or some other dumbass zoomer term brain rot. I'm not great with DMC 5 Dante, I'll be honest. I have gotten better though with them obviously, and was able to hit floor 96 of Bloody Palace, but me not autistically, you know, stringing together combos by style switching every half a second doesn't make me bad, nor does it make it a skill issue. Just because I don't play the game the same way as some autistic fucking retard on the internet, or how some dipshit fans arbitrarily determine how and how you cannot play the game. Just because I don't play the way they want me to doesn't make me bad, nor does it invalidate any of my criticisms with the game, such as my problem with the different enemy types, bosses, and just overall combat, which I'll get more into the different enemy types in a while and all my gripes with them. But yeah, my point being is less combos or less autistic aerial attacks doesn't make a game fucking worse. But anyways, the first stage is okay. It's extremely short and it introduces you to the Devil Breakers and Overture. It's basically just a straight line. If you're expecting the level design to ever actually progress from this or evolve from this, don't get your expectations too high, because it really doesn't get any better than this or really any more complex than this. Like, this is obviously fine for a first stage, just teaching you the basics and mechanics, but we already had a stage just like this prior, that being the Prologue stage. But I can't entirely complain about it since DMC 3 does a similar thing where the first 3 stages are all incredibly short, the first 2 being just single rooms where you just need to defeat waves of enemies. But honestly, it works fine in that game, as it basically teaches you if you can't beat a room full of enemies, you aren't going to make it far in this game, because DMC 3, unlike DMC 5, is actually quite difficult. Like, I'm not even joking. Normal on DMC 3 is probably harder than Sons of Sparta for DMC 5, which Sons of Sparta, if you don't know, is basically just hard mode. Like, DMC 3 is unironically get good scrub. DMC 5 is unironically DMC 2, where every enemy has 5 bars of fucking health, which was a problem with that game, but not 5 for some reason. Like, seriously, everybody complains about DMC 2 having bullet sponge enemies, but all of a sudden fine when DMC 5 does it, just because, dude, you know, I can style switch on the demons for 5 minutes straight. Isn't that fun, dude? Hitting a stupid bug queen all day doing next to 0 damage? Because look at my screen, there's a triple S at the top of it, so obviously it's a good game. Obviously, bro, this game's so fucking good. It's not a bad game with dog shit bullet sponge enemies. It's a good game. Like, the mental gymnastics DMC 5 players and fanboys will go through to cope that this is the greatest action game or the best DMC game is fucking insane. But anyways, you eventually get to the Glyphoth fruits for the first boss, and it's an introductory boss, I guess. I don't know, there's nothing really interesting about it, and it's just incredibly fucking boring, which a large portion of the bosses in this game are just dog shit or boring. Like, again, going back to DMC 3, the second mission, which if we count the Prologue mission, this is the second mission of DMC 5. You fight the Hell Vanguard, which are the Grim Reaper-like enemies of DMC 3, much like how DMC 1 had the Sin Scissor enemies, and this is the first boss you encounter. These do go on to be mini bosses in later levels, but the point being is just look at the difference between these two bosses. Like, even comparing this to Cherry Urzen, it's night and day. Design wise, it's a Grim Reaper that is like a black cloak and it's wielding a large scythe. So if we're keeping tallies, DMC 3 is always winning so far. And we can take this a step further with the fodder enemies. DMC 3 with the 7 hells, most being scythe-like Grim Reaper enemies. Meanwhile, what does DMC 5 have again? What do we get? Literal bugs. Eat the bugs, goy. Consume your goy slop. Enjoy bon appetit. Now, to be fair, DMC 5 also does have the hell kinda, I think, or whatever the fuck they're called, which are similar in design, but are ultimately a huge downgrade design-wise. They just have so much more personality, both visually and through the cutscenes in DMC 3 versus 5. So after defeating the hentai boss, we get the cutscene where Nero is in his garage and gets his devil buster taken, which I already went over this, so I'm not going to be doing it again. So the second mission, you'll be going through generic streets and a generic looking hotel, which I thought this hotel might have been the overall castle or mansion of this game, which I think is a huge missed opportunity, as pretty much none of the levels are connected in Devil May Cry 5, unlike in all of the previous games where you'd have a large castle that you'd slowly explore, find key items, and or do puzzles to slowly unlock more and more of the map. Instead of having cool unique set pieces like gothic castles or towers, we instead get generic streets, hallways, and demon trees. How fun, dude! Truly, this is the peak of DMC, and clearly this is so much better than DMC 1, 3, and 4. Like, you'd have to be an idiot to think gothic castles and towers are cooler than walking through generic fucking streets. Wait a minute. I just thought of something, okay? You guys want to know what else this game has in comparison with DMC 2? The generic street levels, which, remember, everybody had a problem with the dogshit generic levels in that game, but it's obviously okay for DMC 5 to do it, because you can style on a bug queen for 5 minutes straight. Fun, how fun, dude! But yeah, this won't be the end of the comparisons between DMC 5 and the other games, as later on in the mission, you'll meet these cleaver demons called Hell Antinora, which are taken straight from the dogshit DMC reboot, which, remember, everybody thinks is shit and dislikes it, but these cleaver enemies are just the chainsaw enemies from the reboot. They work exactly the fucking same. So again, why the fuck does DMC 5 get all of these passes with its bullet sponge enemies, horrible level design, much akin to DMC 2 with its generic streets, and enemies taken straight from a shit game? I guess again, because you can style on Z bugs for 5 minutes, am I right? I'm sorry, but I really do need to keep bringing this shit up just to hammer in the point of how retarded the DMC 5 fanboys are. So as you're exploring the hotel, you'll come across these Nedhog hatchlings, which you need to put into the tree roots or whatever to destroy them. They are basically just keys, and these roots blocking your paths are the doors. It is pretty fucking pathetic though. This is the only key item in the entire game. It's probably also equally as pathetic that the first time you get one of these key items, it's literally not even 3 feet from where you fucking use it. I guess the modern audience truly is that retarded, and Capcom just has that little faith in their player base. You'll also come across your first secret mission, which how they work in this game is you need to line up the camera standing in a specific location to line up the pentagram circle thingy perfectly. These secret missions are a staple of the series and have been in every game since the original. This first secret mission is the same as DMC 4's first secret mission, and same with DMC 3's first secret mission, where you just need to kill all the enemies within the time limit. Completing these gives you blue orb fragments, which if you collect 4, you get an increase of your health. Some of these secret missions are actually a throwback to the original game, like one where you need to strike the Sin Scissors in her weak point and kill her in a single hit. Exactly the same as DMC 1's secret mission, but just significantly easier, as in DMC 1 you had to have great timing, positioning, and you did the shit underwater where your health was constantly draining. So they kept secret missions, but they scrapped combat adjudicators for whatever reason, which were the statues in DMC 3 and also 4, where you need to build up your style ranking to the amount of lit flames with a specific weapon or color of the statue. These would give you a blue orb if it was destroyed. In 5, they are gone, nowhere to be found, despite 4 also, you know, like I said, having them. Like, I just don't understand why you'd scrap this, as it would teach the player how to combo and style with different weapons. You'd even need to be quite stylish to get triple S ranks with some of the weapons on some of these statues. But yeah, that's the motto of 5. Scrap everything iconic and unique about your game and make it as bland and boring as possible to appeal to the fucking normie audience, because you have realistic graphics now. So obviously, all the fucking normies are gonna eat this slop up. And would you look at that, DMC 5 is the best-selling DMC game. Wow, to nobody's surprise. So you eventually get to the boss Goliath, and do my eyes deceive me? An actually cool set piece with the sun setting low in the sky and the churches. Wow, too bad there isn't many more cool set pieces like this one. Honestly, I can't really think of any others. This is probably the highlight of the game, and this boss is actually really good and well designed. But yeah, don't expect much more of this, since the rest of Nero's bosses, aside from the one you fight on mission 15, are dog shit. Yeah, I'm not even joking. Nero only gets 3 good boss fights throughout the entire game. This being one of them, which I don't even know if you can call Nero's final boss, Vergil, a good boss fight, as that's literally just taken straight out of DMC3, because the hacks at Capcom can't do anything else but reuse Vergil over and over, and also for nostalgia bait. And this other final boss on Mission 15 is more of a Monster Hunter boss taken straight out of Monster Hunter World than it is an actual DMC boss. It's still one of the better bosses in the game though, but it doesn't feel like a DMC boss at all. But yeah, Goliath is a cool boss. I like him a lot. He's not super hard, but he's challenging enough to where if you don't learn his moves or try to evade his attacks, you're going to die. He has a decent amount of moves, all being very well telegraphed and easy to read, such as his Hulk smash move, shooting out fireballs out of his stomach and also sucking you up through his stomach to shoot you out. You can use your devil trigger, which you obviously won't have at this point on your first playthrough, to break out of this, or really any grab in the game, or you can break out of it by breaking one of your devil breaker arms to get out of his stomach instantly. I do think this move specifically is kind of bullshit, as your instinct would be to try and go behind him when he does his attack, but for whatever reason there's an invisible wall behind him, which I do think is probably the only bad thing about this boss fight and the only thing that's poorly designed. But other than that, everything else with the boss is fine, and I do like this. Probably is Nero's best boss. Mission 3, you start on some rooftops and learn how to use wirebound to snatch to like floating circle things that you shoot to activate them. It's about how it works in DMC4, just much more heavily dumbed down and much easier to do with no levels actually utilizing this more than just to get up somewhere or to cross a huge gap, whereas in 4 you'd actually need to use it to do actual platforming, and you needed good timing or your ass would get hit by the ceiling spikes and need to start over. There's one secret mission though where you need to wirebound across the entire level without touching the ground, but it's basically just spam wirebound, and it's about as easy as that. But anyways, the rest of the mission is taking place in the sewers, which are usually always boring in pretty much any game that you play. They are always boring and generic. There are some exceptions obviously, such as Silent Hill, but that's more so a subway system than sewers. But you get the point. Sewers are boring, and a large part of this game takes place either in sewers or subways or generic streets, and in the Clyfoth plant thing. So you eventually get to these routes, which are about as deep and complex as levels get, where you need to destroy the weak point or burst these red parts of the roots to open up the door. So it's just a different variation of gather bug and put it in the root. There's literally no difference other than you need to attack the root instead. You eventually get to this room with a throwback to DMC1 with Sin's scissors coming out of the painting, but despite them bringing these enemies back, they lost all of the charm from the original. You remember that laugh that they would do in the original, that creepy high-pitched laugh? Yeah, that's gone. So even the enemies they bring back, they ruin. You can still damage these guys and kill them instantly though, like in their original, but this time they do have a lot more health and they are much more bullet spongy. You can only really do damage to them after breaking both pieces of their scissors, and then their weak point will be exposed. They are annoying as fuck to fight, unlike in DMC1, where they are quite easy to take out and don't have much health. You then get some optional platforming by hopping onto the chandeliers for some optional red orbs, which is blasphemy, How dare Capcom put, platforming in my DMC game, despite the series always having platforming since the original game. How fucking dare they? I just want to combo on bug queens for 5 minutes straight and nothing else, because that's obviously what determines whether a game is good or not. Obviously. You then get to the boss, and this is just a boring dogshit boss. It's a floating boss, and you need to use Nero's wire snatch, which you learned how to do earlier in the mission, to reach the boss and keep up with her as she zips across the room. She just shoots lasers at you, and you need to constantly go back and forth. It's just a boring boss fight, both in terms of fighting and in terms of design. Nothing is unique or interesting or cool about this boss. It's just dull and uninteresting. So after killing Artemis, you find Lady inside of her, which is the girl from DMC3, the best DMC game, And if anybody, you know, says otherwise, they are objectively and obviously fucking wrong. But anyway, she is naked and covered in some leche blanco. She doesn't really have much of a part in the story, and only really had a part in the story of 3. They only keep bringing back Lady and Trish for fan service. Hopefully if they ever do make a DMC 6, they tell Nico to drive her mystery van off a cliff, and we get the return of the perfect waifu Kyrie, or just focus on Dante and scrap Nero entirely. I'm fine with that as well. Although I would probably be sad to see Kyrie gone, but she's already gone, so you know, what can you do? So the next mission, which is 4, you play as V, the best character in the entire franchise.
Shut your bitch ass the fuck up!
And when I say that, what I really mean is the most absolute dog shit, most boring to play, and carpal tunnel simulator V. Horrible character. I hate everything about him, from design wise with all the retarded tattoos on his body, the personality of him being a rejected member of My Chemical Romance, or the goth kids from South Park, and obviously his gameplay, which is like I said in the opening, just spam up and down or a circle with the analog stick, and spam both square and triangle at the same time, maybe mixing in a hold every now and then. It's just the most brain-dead gameplay of all time. How he works though is he has 3 summons, that being Griffin, Shadow, and Nightmare, all enemies from DMC 1, which is just more nostalgia bait, which is what this game loves to do, just making callbacks or throwing in shit from past games, which, you know, doing this doesn't make the new game any better, obviously. 2 out of his 3 summons though were bosses from the original game, which is surprising since I don't know why they chose Shadow over Phantom, the literal spider boss from DMC 1. I guess it's because the modern audience can't handle spooters, because, you know, they're like spoopy, dude. Also, supposedly the dog shit RE engine couldn't handle spiders, hence why they were scrapped from Monster Hunter World and Resident Evil 2 remake. But anyways, all these summons have similar moves that they did as bosses from 1, so in that aspect it is kind of cool, but playing as a summoner character in a DMC game is just retarded. Griffin you control with square, which is basically his gun, and Shadow that you control with triangle, which would basically be like your melee or sword, and Nightmare is your devil trigger. The gameplay would be much better if it didn't allow you to spam both Shadow and Griffin at once, but since you're able to do this, there's no reason not to, especially since V lacks any sort of damage output and primarily relies on Nightmare to do most of his damage, which I didn't even realize Nightmare was supposed to be Nightmare from DMC 1, since he has a completely different form despite him, you know, having the same exact name. He takes a standing up humanoid form, whereas in the original he has like a blob form that just laid on the floor. But yeah, you can also restore your devil trigger through reading poetry. Yeah, I'm not even joking. By holding R2, you'll read from your poetry book and restore a DT. So since you're a summoner though, you never actually have to be close to the enemies and can just allow your summons to damage the enemies while standing 20 feet away, free from any sort of danger. So you basically only ever take damage due to literal boredom and falling asleep. Your summons, however, do have health, but on the lower difficulties, they will basically never die, and also when the enemies are near death, they become colorless and you need to press circle to finish the enemies off, which brings you close to the enemy. V is horrible to play, that's all you really need to know, and on the harder difficulties, especially Dante Must Die mode, you'll basically just be spamming the buttons till you legit have carpal tunnel, as every enemy has a million hit points and your summons will die in 2 hits, so you constantly need to go up to your summons while they are down to refill their health until they revive, which is annoying because if both of your summons are down or even one of them is down, it's basically going to cut your damage output in half or completely negate any damage that you can do.
Like, why does he have so much fucking goddamn health, man? Like, look at this. How is this fun? How does anybody defend this shit? Like, how do you defend this? Like, how do you fucking defend this dog shit? Oh my god, this is absolute dog shit. What, there's another one? Are you fucking kidding me? Oh my god, what the fuck were they thinking?
What the fuck were they thinking?
Which, like I said, he already does next to 0 damage, so cutting it in half just makes the encounters go on for even longer than they should. He truly is miserable to play, and I don't know how any mouth-drooling retard could ever defend playing this dogshit character, but somehow people defend him. I don't know how, but some people enjoy him apparently. I mean, one cool thing about V, I guess if I had to say one positive about him, is using his devil trigger, which summons Nightmare. He'll usually spawn in different locations depending on the combat arena or the area. So for example, something sometimes there may be a wall you'll smash through if you use your devil trigger near it, which will usually have like a hidden area or secret mission. Kind of cool, but that's about where the positives end for V. So you eventually get a Nidhogg, the first boss for V, and it basically acts similar to the boss from DMC3 when you're inside the giant Leviathan fish and you need to destroy the 3 organs to expose the heart. This is similar to that where you need to defeat the 3 root heads to stun or get a shit ton of damage off on the main body. This is just a dog shit boss, and he's also quite poorly designed, especially if you're fighting him as Vergil, since the lock-on system in this game is absolutely atrocious. But to be fair, the lock-on system in all the DMC games are quite bad, but I swear to god this shit doesn't work half the time, where it just won't change targets, or it'll just randomly change targets, or it'll lock onto an enemy nowhere fucking near you. It just straight up does not work half the time. But yeah, unlike Heart of Leviathan from DMC3, where you need to either focus on one of his sides, either the left side or the right side, which the left would steal your orbs and the right would steal your devil trigger, so you need to be strategic in which side you wanted to get rid of, since you can use your DT to do more damage and also heal, but the enemies also drop, you know, green orbs, which is health, and they also drop red orbs, which is money. So if you don't get rid of the left one, you're not going to be able to restore your health and you're losing out on red orbs. For Nidhogg, it's just defeat the heads. It's just boring and not fun, which again is the reoccurring theme with DMC5 bosses. They are either just boring, not fun, or just not good. Mission 5, you're forced to play as this dog shit character again. Yes, twice in a row. Like honestly, what the fuck were they thinking?
What were they thinking with this shitload of fuck?
What mouth drooler at Capcom thought this gameplay was acceptable? Fucking morons. Oh yeah, this mission also takes place in the sewers and is also mostly just hallways, because 5 missions in and 5 games in the series, we somehow forgot to do good level design. The boss for this mission might be better than the last one, I don't know. They are about the same. Neither are necessarily fun to fight though. It's the horse boss from DMC3, which is more nostalgia bait and even has the same slowdown move which several bosses in this game have for whatever reason. But yeah, it's not nearly as interesting as DMC3, as you can't jump on the chariot like you could in DMC3. Although to be fair, it's not like the boss from 3 was great to begin with, but this is obviously worse somehow. Probably because you're playing as V. Fighting him as Vergil is actually decent, as you can just spam his trickster teleport to constantly be on him. But yeah, so far out of like the 6 bosses we have fought so far, there's only been what, like I think a single good boss at this point, that being Goliath. So can somebody please tell me why this game gets glazed as hard as it does? Like nearly every boss from 3 is iconic. Every boss from 1 is well designed and fun to fight. Even DMC4 has cool and better bosses than 5, other than the last 2 final bosses, obviously. Those ones suck ass. But other than that, this just further reinforces my thoughts of this game just being inferior to 4. Not to mention 4, you don't have to play as this piece of shit character, so that alone makes it a better game. Mission 6 is one of the most forgettable missions in the entire game, and you're back to playing Nero. I'm not even joking though, or exaggerating. I completely forgot this boss and mission even existed until I replayed through the entire game just a few weeks ago. Like, this boss was completely removed and erased from my mind and memory. Mission 6 is just a shitty boss fight where you fight Gilgamesh, which is basically just this really big bug with long legs, and you need to attack his weak points on his legs to wire snatch your way up to do damage to his like red fleshy weak point or whatever. He sends out spikes on top to either knock you off or to prevent you from doing too much damage. He has a few other attacks, but this boss is just extremely underwhelming and just a complete fucking bore. This is probably the worst boss so far, and there are several missions in this game that are just boss fight missions or missions that are just incredibly short. People always talk shit about DMC4 being unfinished or not complete, yet mission 6 is just a boss fight. Mission 14 is a shitty boss rush where you need to play as V. Mission 17 you just fight Urizen. There's also mission 13, which is basically just 3 floors of Bloody Palace. Mission 18 barely even qualifies as a mission, as you're mostly just fight V's summons. Mission 19 and 20 are both boss fights where you just fight Vergil, one time as Dante, the other time as Nero. That's 6 missions out of the 21, probably maybe even 7, that you could barely even call missions. Possibly even 9 out of the 21 missions if you count the shitty prologue mission in mission 1. Again, how does anybody shit talk DMC4 for being unfinished when like a third of the missions in this game are just boss fight missions, and it's not even like they are good boss fights either, as you can see for mission 6. Mission 7 is one of the unique missions in the game where you can actually choose to play as either Nero or V, which, let's just be real, okay? Who the fuck is going to pick V over Nero? But one cool thing about this mission is it's the only mission to feature this. Depending on who you pick, they both go different routes and end up in the same location at the end. Unfortunately, this mission also takes place underground in a subway, so we're already 7 missions in and we haven't seen any cool levels yet. The only standout in this level and the only memorable thing about it is the part where you're going up the escalators, because wow, would you look at that? It's actual level design, like holy shit. Finally a battle arena that's just not static and flat. The escalators go downwards, so you gotta go in between them to get up, but as you're going up, there's these purple electric things that shoot out electricity. It's crazy how much even the slightest amount of level design and adding stage hazards can do to make like stages and levels more memorable. The downside though is that all the enemies end up at the bottom because they never programmed the AI to be able to fucking jump or do anything if there is a roadblock or obstacle, or if there's even a slight, you know, increase in elevation, which is just hilarious. And no, I'm not even joking. If it's an enemy that can't fly or teleport, they literally cannot get to you if you're on a different elevation than they are. I'm guessing they never thought of adding a feature as basic as jumping to the enemy, since 95% of the combat encounters, like I said, are on flat ground. So on the rare occasion you do fight enemies not on a flat surface, their AI just can't handle it. It just truly is pathetic how bad this game is in certain aspects. But somehow, you guys, remember, this is the holy grail of hack and slash action games. Most certainly, truly a masterpiece, okay?
Look at this shit. He literally can't get up here. Look at this. He can't jump up. This game is so fucking bad. People are like, bro, this game's a masterpiece. This is the best Devil May Cry ever, you guys. The fucker can't even jump. He can't even jump up here. Look at this shit. Best game ever, though. Best DMC ever, right. Definitely. Best DMC ever. Yeah, this is the best DMC game, right. Definitely. Keep fucking coping. Keep fucking coping.
If this was any other game though, it would definitely be called out for. But since it's DMC 5, and I guess you can like style on a bug queen for 5 minutes straight, it's obviously okay. Obviously. You then eventually get to this opera house and fight Proto Angelo, which is basically just Nilo Angelo, another nostalgia bait enemy. Hey, you guys remember Nilo Angelo from DMC 1? I do, dude. Just keep adding shit from better games. Surely it'll make this one better, surely. But this enemy is kind of shit, especially on the higher difficulties. Like if you're fighting this motherfucker on Sons of Sparta or God forbid Dante Must Die mode, you'll be hacking at this fucker for literal minutes. Like you could legit beat an actual boss on any lower difficulty before you defeat this guy, which is just straight up retarded. The amount of health these guys have is just absurd. Nothing is fun hitting an enemy for 5 minutes fucking straight. Maybe DMC 6 should add the Adjudicator statues back and make it take 5 minutes to get triple S rank. I'm sure the mouth breathers would love that shit. Maybe DMC 6 should add the combat Adjudicator statues back and make them actual enemies that appear in combat and make it take like 5 minutes to get triple S rank to defeat them. I'm sure the mouth breathers would love that shit. Hell, might as well just make every enemy in DMC 6 a combat Adjudicator, as that's about the same experience as fighting these bullet sponge enemies.
Bro, like he's not taking any fucking damage. Look at this. Like he has more health than an actual fucking boss. Like, does he need this much fucking hit points? Like, is it really necessary to give him 5 billion hit points? Oh, now he's powered up. As if he already didn't have enough health.
What were they fucking thinking?
But yeah, as you're fighting Proto Angelo, the opera house is falling, and this is just straight out of Bayonetta. The only problem is, the shit game removed fixed camera angles, meaning you can't actually see the building falling. Like, this so easily could have been a cool set piece if they zoomed the camera out, but normies hate fixed cameras, so scratch that, never mind. But seriously, DMC 1, 3, and 4 had such cool camera angles where the camera would zoom incredibly far out to showcase certain areas better. Do we get that or anything like that in DMC 5? Nope. The camera is always tied behind your back, which that reminds me of another thing. The camera feels like it's straight out of God of Soy 4. Like if you want the camera to zoom out just a little bit further, you need to go into the options to change that. For whatever reason, the default camera is like literally 1 inch off your back. It's so incredibly bad. You're also introduced to these knight enemies, but they are much more boring than the knights from DMC 4, as those ones could actually fly and had lances. Not to mention they had cool interactions with Nero's grab, so again, just more downgrades of 4, yet somehow this is supposed to be the better game somehow, I don't know, but. So moving on to mission 8, you're back inside the Clyfoth tree, which despite the level looking like dog shit and the level being primarily just long hallways, it at least provides some variety with some lava fall elevators, which is kind of cool. Like these levels needed more shit like this to break up the combat. Like have some light platforming or stage hazards in between the combat encounters. Some of the combat encounters are timed, so it's like the elevator section from DMC 3, where you need to kill all the enemies before the elevator falls. Doing so, you'll get rewards like extra red orbs or blue orbs. You eventually get to Cherry Urizen and you need to break his crystal. This is another fight you're supposed to lose, but you can actually win, and if you do, you beat the game. Also, good luck getting S rank on this dogshit mission without beating Urizen. You're then introduced to Dante and V meeting. In the next mission 9, you have to play as V once again.
What's your name? I have no name. I am but 2 days old. Just kidding. You can call me V.
Okay, V. Why don't you tell me everything about this job?
The level is dog shit, as all V missions are, but it's actually pretty decent playing it as Vergil. But at the end of the mission, you're met with nobodies from DMC1. Oh my god, dude, insert soy face. Oh my god, bro, those are the nobodies. Oh my god, more nostalgia bait.
Whoa, this is some kind of ritual shindig, isn't it? You guys got the dance fever for Sparta, don't you? Whoa, easy on the dance floor there, partner.
Except they ruined them and removed any and all character from them. More nostalgia bait that is just inferior to the original. You remember those demonic monkey screechers that they made in 1? Yeah, it's gone. Remember how they would explode and slowly die after killing them? Yeah, that's gone too.
Alright, we got him. Oh shit, I forgot they explode. Forgot they explode.
So if you're going to bring back enemies from past games, why the fuck do you change them? Well, it's a good thing they gave them about double if not triple health as they had in DMC1. That's the problem with this fucking game. It's far too easy and they had no idea how to balance the game or make it harder. So instead of, you know, upping the aggression of enemies or giving them more aggressive attacks or whatever, or just more attacks in general, they instead just make it so every enemy takes 100 hits to kill. That's not fun. Again, it's just DMC2 where every enemy had multiple health bars. That's what this is. It's DMC2. So V obtains Sparta, which they completely butchered the look of, and it looks straight out of Monster Hunter World, which a lot of shit from this game I think is just reused assets or models from that game, and it really does show, as this is clearly not Sparta. This is a Monster Hunter World weapon, which isn't a good thing obviously, since World butchered all the weapon designs much like this game.
Is that the Devil Sword Sparta? What the fuck did they do to it? Oh my god. Like, what happened to the Devil Sword? Oh, wow. It looks like a fucking Monster Hunter World. Is that a Monster Hunter World weapon? Like, what the fuck did they do to it, man? Oh my god, they butchered Sparta's weapon.
So V is about to stab Dante right before he wakes up. You get a dream with Dante's mother, which is a plotline basically taken straight out of the dog shit reboot. And later in the game, you even get to go to your house with the painting of your mother, exactly like in the dog shit reboot, which the story was trash in that game. So why are you reusing it for this game? So mission 10, halfway through the game, you can finally play as Dante, the character everybody wants to, you know, actually play as, which Dante is much more complex and just has way more going for him than both V and Nero, as he has multiple different melee weapons and ranged weapons, on top of having 4 different styles to swap between, that being Trickster, Swordsmaster, Gunslinger, and Royal Guard. Trickster allows you to teleport around and is great at dodging and avoiding attacks, as well as being able to teleport quickly towards enemies far away. Swordsmaster gives all your melee weapons an additional button to use attacks with, so all of your styles are assigned to the circle button. So now instead of just having, you know, triangle to do attacks with, you can now press circle to do additional attacks, and it naturally and obviously gives all your weapons much more moves. Most attacks in DMC are either delayed or directional while holding the lock-on button. So for example, if you press triangle and hold back when you do so, you can do high time, which will launch you and the enemy up into the air. Pressing forward and triangle does stinger, which will allow you to close in on enemies further away. There's also attacks where you need to press back to forward, kind of like in a fighting game, just much easier to do. There's also delayed attacks. For example, you press triangle, wait a half second, then press it again and again. Nero has more delayed attacks and aerial delayed attacks, which allow you to go further up into the air. But yeah, I'm not going to go super in detail with the combat system and all the different moves. It's good as most DMC games are. Moving on to his other styles, Gunslinger does the same thing Swordsmaster does, except the only difference is it does it towards your guns instead of your swords, which can give you more air time, such as pressing circle while in the air with Ebony and Ivory, or using Kalina Ann to shoot a rocket directly below you, propelling an enemy upwards towards you. Then finally there is Royal Guard, which with perfectly timed blocks or counters, you can basically block any attack in the game if you know the timing well enough.
Holy shit, I got that off. Holy fuck. Oh, I got it off. Holy shit, I got it off again.
And it'll fill up this little gauge which you can unleash and deal massive damage with. I don't really like Royal Guard too much and usually just mostly avoid it. I just don't like countering shit in games, I'll be honest. I much prefer to just evade out of the way or actually block an attack with a dedicated block button such as Ninja Gaiden, or you know, just a dedicated roll button. But anyways, Dante gets access to 3 different swords: Rebellion, Sparta, and Devil Sword Dante, all being replaceable. Like, there really isn't any reason to use the other 2 once you unlock Devil Sword Dante, as it's mostly just a straight up upgrade and almost every every aspect. The only difference is Sparta does a bit more damage with certain attacks and has Dante's old moveset, which I honestly much prefer and like better, while Devil Sword Dante has his Swords Master moveset mixed into his triangle attacks. It makes Dante feel more like Nero than Dante. You also get a new version of Cerberus, the 3-sided nunchucks, this time each button possessing a different element. Triangle is the normal ice nunchucks, circle is the new fire bow staff, and holding either triangle or circle allows you to do different electrical attacks, which are pretty cool. One of Dante's brand new melee weapons is Cavalier, which is basically a motorcycle that is quite slow but quite powerful. You can even ride it around the arena, which is pretty cool. It's a lot of fun and a cool over-the-top weapon. And finally, you have Balrog, which is basically 2 weapons in one. It allows you to switch between using your feet to do kicks and then fists to do punches, jabs, and uppercuts. You can switch between the 2 stances by pressing triangle and back. You want to use the fist, and after dealing enough damage, it'll power it up and engulf them in flames. You can then do more damage, I think, and even switch back over to the gauntlets while it's still powered up. So those are Dante's 4 melee weapons, and he also has 4 guns, that being Ebony and Ivory, which is a staple and the only weapon in the series that has been in every single game, I believe, since Rebellion wasn't introduced until DMC 2. They're very quick but do very little damage and mostly just there to extend your combos. And then there's also the shotgun, which is actually, now that I think about it, the only other gun in the game that has been featured in every single DMC game. But basically it does a lot more damage, but it fires more slowly, obviously. Kalina Ann and Kalina Ann 2, which are ladies rocket launchers from DMC 3, and you can combine them into a dual Kalina Ann and have dual rocket launchers. And if you use Gunslinger, you can basically shoot out laser beams or send swarms of rockets towards enemies. It's definitely my favorite firearm and the one I use the most. And then you also have Michael Jackson's hat, which I almost never use.
Oh yeah, we got the Michael Jackson shit. I forgot this was in the game.
But it basically works as you can toss the hat onto an enemy and dealing damage to them drops you extra red orbs. You can also expend your red orbs to do powerful attacks or even summon a little hat familiar. I don't care for this weapon though and have it unequipped so I can cycle between my 3 guns much quicker. So yeah, there's quite a bit of complexity to Dante, especially compared to the other characters, and it can be quite a bit of a learning curve to play him efficiently and properly. So mission 10, you're in the Clyfoth routes once again. How exciting, dude. How fucking truly exciting. And you get to fight Chair Urizen for the 3rd fucking time. Again, truly, how exciting. I just love whacking at a crystal. It's just such a good boss fight, am I right? Like, DMC 5 needed a way better rival boss than whatever the fuck this dog shit is. Like, DMC 1 having Nilo Angelo, for example, that you'd fight 3 times across the entire game. DMC 3 having Vergil, you'd also fight 3 times throughout the course of the game. DMC 4, though, didn't really have a rival boss, now that I think about it. I guess you maybe could say Dante, but you only fought him twice, and once was during the tutorial. But yeah, Chair Urizen is definitely not it. Mission 11, you can find the only hidden weapon in the game, the Kalina Ann, and I think during the 2nd final mission or one of the last missions, Lady gives you the other one, which you can combine into 2.
Gonna rip him a new one.
Vergil's... How? Dante! Made it for Lady and she paid for it, so consider it a rental. Hey, you can't just...
Okay, we'll take care of that later. Right now, you 3 get the hell out of here. I'm gonna go take care of old douchebag. Got a feeling this one's gonna be a doozy.
You'll also meet one of the brand new enemies in this mission called the Adjudicators, which are probably some of the most annoying enemies in this game, which isn't too surprising since a lot of the enemies in this game are just annoying or obnoxious to fight. They basically teleport across the room like bitches, and it just takes forever to kill them. They just suck to fight, but you eventually get to the boss called Cavalier Angelo, which is pretty similar to Nilo Angelo from DMC 1, as when you strike him, he'll also strike, so you can keep striking him over and over and then evade out of the way to damage him. But he can teleport across the room and he has electricity powers. He's actually a pretty good boss fight. So 11 missions in and we have what, 2 good boss fights so far? Halfway through the game, only 2 good bosses? Kinda sad, not gonna lie. So after defeating him, you recognize Trish as she was trapped inside of him, much like Lady was trapped inside the other boss. And you also unlock the Cavalier motorcycle weapon. This is also what Sony censored, by the way, for the PlayStation, where they added glaring lights, which they hardly show anything to begin with, but I guess it just goes to show how fucking cucked Sony has become, which isn't too surprising when they put out pure slop like like Spider Trash 2, God of Ragnarok, Intergalactic, Bigot Sandwich of Us 2, Nikocado Avocado Simulator with Horizon, and many other slop-ass games. So yeah, enjoy your slop, Goyim. It's also funny since, you know, God of War used to be extremely based, but, you know, not anymore. But anyways, moving on, Mission 12 tries to switch up things a little bit, as you need to go around this area destroying these blood things to open up the little trap door at the bottom. I wish more missions attempted stuff like this and had more going for them, but alas, most missions, like I've already stated, are just generic hallways after generic hallways. You'll also encounter another new enemy type halfway through this mission called the Fury, which are these super fast teleporting lizards, which are probably the most annoying enemies in the entire game, as they never stop moving and you can never get damage off on them. It's just a pain in the ass fighting them. It's not that bad fighting them alone, but if you're fighting them with other enemies, it's just such a hassle. Just pop your devil trigger and or your sin devil trigger, which you haven't unlocked that yet, but it's basically this brand new mechanic I think you unlock at the end of this mission, where you can transfer your devil trigger to your sin devil trigger gauge, and once that fills up, by holding L1 you'll transform into your sin devil trigger form, which is basically just Alistair's DT form from DMC1. You know, even this new mechanic isn't as original as you think it is, as it has very similar, if not the exact same moves as Alistair's DT had, such as Vortex and shooting electricity or fireballs from your hand. It basically just does massive damage, but it doesn't heal you like your DT does. So you should always fill this up if your DT is full, or just keep it filled, because it's basically a get out of jail free card, as you gain incredible damage reduction and you just deal stupid amounts of damage. So at the end of the mission, you unlock your sin double trigger and you fight Urizen for the 4th fucking time. This time, thankfully, he isn't a Reddit mod sitting in his chair all day and is actually up to get exercise for the first time of the month. You also unlock Devil Sword Dante, and it replaces Sparta and Rebellion until you beat the game. This Urizen boss is fine, but he's just wearing out his welcome at this point, fighting the same boss over and over. Yes, I get he was sitting down in the previous fights, but it doesn't change the fact that this is the 4th fucking time you fight him, and it isn't even the last time you fight him either. Yes, he's not the same, I get that, but fighting the same boss 5 fucking times is just stupid, especially when 3 of those 5 times is just him sitting in a chair. Other than that, it's a fine boss fight, not exactly one of my favorites or anything. It's nothing special, but it's not horrible either. It's just a whatever boss. Mission 13 is the only mission where you get to select between all 3 playable characters, and the last mission you get to select your character, which I think is a huge missed opportunity, since it's the only mission where you can play as all 3 playable characters outside of Vergil, which is separate from the base game. But anyways, this mission is basically just 3 or I guess 5 floors of Bloody Palace, as you just kill the enemies then go downwards to the next floor. It's incredibly short and just feels almost unfinished, like it should have went on longer. I don't know. Like, this mission is about 5 minutes, if even that. There is a few little secret areas in this mission which actually look pretty sick. It's also the only mission, from what I understand, that is multiplayer. Well, you can't play with your friends or anything like that, but depending on the character you play as, you'll get some random who will be in the mission with you, helping you, and it's actually pretty cool. But yeah, it would have been nice if more missions allow you to select which character you wanted to play as to add more replayability, or just allow you to play each mission as whoever you want once you beat the game. I also forgot to mention, one cool addition to this game is the inclusion of aerial taunts, which is probably my favorite new addition to this series, as you can taunt enemies in midair. And doing taunts in DMC isn't just to look cool or anything like that. It builds up your style meter and refills your DT gauge. They also added little attacks to certain taunts now. So Vergil, for example, sends out his swords during his aerial taunt, and Dante sends out a rose that can do damage. Nero has the best aerial taunt though, in my personal favorite, as he grabs his sword and basically spin jumps with it, giving you a 3rd jump, which is actually really cool. There's other taunts that have utility as well, such as one where Nero revs up his sword, giving you 1 exceed gauge. Mission 14 is probably one of the worst, if not the worst mission in this game, since you have to play as V, and he has lost all of his powers. However, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, as this is the final time you need to play as this dogshit character. That is until you need to play as him again on your next playthrough on hard or DMD mode. So I guess a temporary light is at the end of this tunnel that will last you for the rest of this playthrough on this difficulty. But anyways, V is like a elderly man in this mission and has basically lost all of his power. He's basically fucking Joe Biden. You can see by the way he constantly stumbles every 5 seconds. Great gameplay. I love this type of shit in my DMC games, am I right? But wait, it gets worse. I'm not even joking. They added a walking segment like in a shitty Sony movie slop game where the only thing you get to do is walk. Yeah, it's short-lived, you know, incredibly short, but it's still there and just adds on to the annoyance of this godforsaken mission. But anyways, this is your standard boss rush mission, which I don't have any problems with, to be honest. I never minded boss rush missions in DMC 3 or the dice missions in DMC 4. I like boss rush missions for the most part, but Capcom, why would you you give the boss rush mission to the worst character in the game? That's what I have a problem with. Like, you couldn't have given this mission to, I don't know, Dante or Nero. This mission is actually pretty fun to play though if you're playing as Vergil, as they add little hook shots all throughout the level so you can cross it fast, and Vergil also just obliterates all the bosses. But anyways, for V, you lost all your powers, so Griffin, Shadow, and Nightmare are all gone, and there are bosses to choose from: Mirage Goliath, Mirage Artemis, and Mirage Angelo, which are all bosses you had fought prior as either Dante or Nero. So these are brand new bosses for V. The problem though with this mission is, like I said, you have all your familiars removed, so each time you fight a boss, right before fighting them, you can regain one of your powers back. So whichever boss you chose to fight first, you're literally going to have to fight them with half of your moveset missing, and or also your devil trigger missing, as you'd have to be a fucking retard to pick Nightmare first, since if you chose that option first, you're gonna have to be reading lines of poetry all goddamn day till the chickens come home, refilling your DT just to deal damage to the bosses. Also, you'd have to be a retard, much less of one obviously, but still a retard at the end of the day, if you choose Griffin first, since Griffin is basically V's gun, so Griffin obviously isn't going to be dealing good damage, so your only real option to pick first is Shadow, as he's the only one who can reliably do damage. This is just a shit mission, and it's just so unbelievably fun, it's like not even funny, bro. Like, you'd want to uninstall the game and never touch the game again because of how poorly designed and just how dog shit this mission is. Unironically, the worst mission in the entire series. I'm not even joking. The first time I played this mission back when DMC5 released, and I got to this mission, I nearly quit. That's how bad this mission is and how painfully boring it is. But anyways, you beat the bosses, get your power back, then see Nero about to fight the next boss, Malphus. So that's where mission 15 begins, and this is the final mission for Nero outside of the very last mission, which is just a boss fight, and this is also the best mission in the game, as it's one of the few missions in this entire game with actual level design. At the start of the mission, there are two branching paths which you can only take one, which, wow, that actually adds replayability, as the next time you play this mission, you'll go to the direction you didn't go and experience, you know, something new the next time you play this mission. One path leads to classic DMC1 spikes, where you need to time your runs or jumps as to not get hit by the spikes, and you even get to fight enemies near these spikes, which, wow, a mission with actual stage hazards. Only took 15 missions to get a mission which is actually enjoyable and not just hallways. Then the other direction is platforming, which I know, that's blasphemy according to the DMC5 autists, despite the fact that every game in the entire series since the very beginning, since the original game on the PS2, has had platforming, but you know, ignore that. Then later on, when the two paths interconnect, you're met with two more directions to go and one optional route, which uses Nero's punchline Devil Breaker to ride his rocket all the way up to the blue orb and other secrets. Wow, they actually incorporated Nero's Devil Breakers into the actual level design? Wow, dude, that's actually kind of cool. Actual level design, actual thought went into this level. And again, only took 15 missions in to finally get a genuinely good and fun stage. But yeah, this is my favorite mission, as you can tell, and if the entire game was more like mission 15, or even if a quarter of the missions were like this, like even if like 5, maybe 6, 7, 8 of the missions were like this, it would drastically improve the game, as that's what's killing this game, is the dog shit level design. I just don't get why it took them 15 levels in to finally create a mission with actual depth and variety. But anyways, you eventually get to the boss Malphus, which acts more like a monster hunter monster or boss than an actual DMC boss. Despite that though, this boss fight for the most part is good and fun, despite, you know, being rather easy. I'm not even joking. On my Sons of Sparta playthrough, I beat this boss without even taking damage. Like, literally beat the boss without taking a single hit. Like, she's stupid easy. Also, what's funny is I've seen people complaining about this mission being bad. Like, this just further proves my point and hammers in the point that DMC5 appeals to the lowest common denominators and just the fucking most brain dead dumbass normies, with its dog shit bland level design, which is designed for literal fucking mouth drooling fucking retards, and dumbing down everything outside of the combat. Like, of course the mouth breathing DMC fanboys can't handle more than one path to choose. Oh my god, dude, 2 branching paths? How do I know which way to go, dude? Oh my god, bro, platforming? How do you jump? What is the jump button? Oh my god, I can only use jumping for combat, not actual level design. What? Wait, what, dude? What do I do? Mission 16 is basically Dante's final mission as well. He has 3 more, obviously, but they're all basically just boss fight missions. And just like mission 15, mission 16 is also pretty good. It does feel like they really ran out of fucking budget at this point, considering, you know, like I just said, the next missions are all boss fights pretty much. So it's like what the fuck is with the half this game? Well, what's with like over, you know, a quarter of the missions in this game literally either just being boss fights or being like, you know, 5 minutes long? It's kind of like pathetic, I'll be honest. But anyways, mission 16 is, like I said, pretty good. It doesn't have as much variety as Nero's final mission, but this mission is still quite good at the end of the day. You basically are heading further and further down the Clyfoth routes, I think. I honestly don't know, but you're heading downwards, so this level has a good amount of platforming where you need to drop down and collect hidden red orbs, secret passageways, and hidden purple orbs. There's also even multiple different paths to take as you're falling down. It's another good mission with actual good level design. Like, what the fuck was Capcom smoking for the first 14 missions? Like, seriously. So you eventually get to the boss, which is King Cerberus.
Looks like your master's got you on a pretty short leash. Come on, little puppy. I'll take you out for a walk. Come on, let's go.
You have fought our king best, and I am king of the Cerberus tribe. They were weak, but we will feast on your flesh and gnaw on your bones.
Which is nostalgia bait for DMC with its Cerberus boss fight, much like this entire game, you know, being nostalgia bait. And like, holy shit, the music alone makes this a downgrade compared to the OG Cerberus fight. Like, listen to the fucking differences between the OG, you know, Cerberus music and this new Cerberus music. Like, holy fuck, man, it's night and day.
This is fucking gay.
Like, how do you downgrade a soundtrack this bad? But other than the dog shit downgraded music, which has been a reoccurring theme with this, you know, game, the boss fight is actually pretty good despite him having a bit too much health in my opinion. He has 3 different forms for each of his 3 elements, that being ice, fire, and electricity. Mission 17 is just a boss fight where you just fight Urizen, and that's basically every mission past 16. So the last 4 missions, like I said, are basically just boss fights with no actual level design outside of mission 18. But that barely has anything going for it as it's extremely short. And you mostly just fight V's familiars, that being Shadow, Griffin, and Nightmare. But anyways, you fight Urizen for the 500th time at this point.
No, brother. You don't have everything. That last shred of humanity that you still had, you just lost it.
That is nothing but the pitiful cries of those without strength. Come to me, brother. I shall enlighten you. Dante!
And afterwards, V comes and stabs him with his cane or some shit, and he combines into one and transforms into Vergil. Oh my god, dude, V was Vergil this whole time? Oh my god, no way, dude! Which, I don't know, I think Vergil might have got hit with the ugly stick or like V's cane, I don't know, because he looks like complete shit here. Like, what the fuck did they do to my boy? They massacred the fuck out of him. So mission 19 is just a copy-paste boss fight from DMC 3 and even DMC Reboot where you fight Vergil for the 50th time. Okay, okay, it's obviously not the 50th time. It's like the 5th time if we count the reboot. I guess it's technically the 8th time if we count Nilo Angelo from DMC1, and more than 10 times if we count all the dogshit fights with Urizen. So yeah, we're finally fighting Vergil, and yeah, it's a good boss fight. Easily the hardest fight in the game. The problem being with this fight is nothing is ever going to top the original DMC3 Vergil fights, especially the one at the top of the tower on mission 7 with the rain pouring down and the moon, you know, up in the sky. Like, nothing is ever going to top that absolute masterpiece in Kino scene. They keep trying to, but it's just impossible. Like, you know, you're never going to be able to achieve it. Even his 2 other fights in DMC3 are just more iconic, such as, you know, his final fight. Then after beating Vergil, Nero comes to break up the 2 brothers fighting and awakens his devil trigger.
This is curious.
Nero.
What form of power is this?
You listen, deadweight. I won't let you kill each other. There are other ways of settling your differences. I'm putting a stop to this sibling rivalry.
You came all this way just for that.
Vergil. V. Whatever you call yourself. Dante's not gonna die here. And neither are you. Do you have a problem with that?
Which has been the pop song that has been playing throughout the entire game. Now you get to fight Vergil again, but this time as Nero with Devil Trigger, and he's significantly easier this time, and it's barely even a fight, well, at least on normal. I guess Dante really did soften up Vergil for Nero to come in and finish him. So you beat Vergil and the game just kind of ends, even though it feels like the game should have went on for another mission or 2, but it just abruptly ends. Dante and Vergil then need to go chop up some roots, and it seals off the portal or some shit, and they're stuck and can't come back. And yeah, the game just ends, despite it feeling like, again, there should be another boss after Vergil, as this ending is just like, it's actually dog shit. You then get a scene with Nero and Nico in the Scooby-Doo mystery van, and then it's happily ever after.
All I'm saying is, tough guy, it's okay to cry if you want.
Oh my god, they said it, they said it, they said it.
Will you shut up? Will you stop it? Look at you, you're
Why do you
nobody's
cry on my
crying,
shoulder?
alright? Stop saying
Cry on
cry.
my shoulder. I know you wanna.
You say cry again. Devil may cry. Fuck.
This is hilarious!
You then get the credit sequence and you kill a bunch of demons as Nero, then you switch over to Dante and Vergil and kill more demons, which this area actually does look pretty cool. This should have been the final boss fight area or have a mission in this section, as it actually looks cool with all the white grass, and it's a much needed pace breaker after all the fucking shitty ass Clyfoth route levels. After that, you then get an epilogue with downgraded Lady and Trish and race swapped Morrison, which I completely forgot was even in this game. Is Morrison even his name? I already fucking forgot, I don't remember. But anyways, I guess Capcom really wanted those extra shekels for including his ass in the final credits, I guess, I don't know. After that, we get one final cutscene with Dante and Vergil.
Oh my god, he said it.
And Dante says the thing. Oh my god, dude, he says the line. He says it. Oh my god, jackpot. Wow, dude. Just like DMC3, dude. Oh my god, insert soy jack face. Oh my god, bro, how fucking cool. I mean, to be fair, it is a cool little epilogue scene. I'll be honest, I do like it. But yeah, that's the game. Oh yeah, you also get a triple jump for Nero now, which is really cool. Technically a quadruple jump if you count his aerial taunt, which already acted as a triple jump. So yeah, after beating the game, you then get Sons of Sparta difficulty or hard difficulty, and it's not really that much harder. It's just the enemies have a bit more health and do a bit more damage. Well, I'd probably say they have a shit ton more health, honestly. And then there's some, you know, remixed enemy spawns, obviously. After beating that, you get DMD mode, which yes, I did beat that, and that mode is absolutely like the pinnacle of dog shit, since every enemy has about 10 million hit points, and then they can also DT, which just gives them insane damage reduction and like doubles, if not triples, their damage output, which is fine, obviously. But you know, the problem is more so the fact that they fucking take an eternity to kill. It's just a slog to play through, since nothing is fun about hitting a single enemy for literal minutes. It's just boring. And it's not like in DMC3 where you can just use your DT to explode and completely bypass or negate the enemy's DT. But yeah, it's a horrible mode. And then after beating that, you unlock Heaven and Hell mode and Hell and Hell mode. These being the gimmick one-hit modes where you and all the enemies die in one hit, and the other being only you die in one hit and all the enemies have full health, and it's basically Sons of Sparta difficulty, which I'm obviously not even going to try and attempt to beat that mode. You do get 3 lives though, so it's a 3 strikes and you're out situation, and even still 3 hit points is not enough for how long some of these stages can go on for. There's also Bloody Palace in this game, which are fixed floors much like in DMC4, where you're given a time limit and only 1 life to try and get as far as possible, with that being 100 floors to clear, and every 20 floors being a boss, with it progressively getting harder till you eventually get to DMD difficulty. And clearing floors will give you more time, and if you clear a floor without taking damage, you'll earn even more time. It's fun if you enjoy just fighting enemies in a static location for hours on end, but if you prefer actually playing through the actual missions of the game, which I guess is almost the exact same experience, as the only difference is you need to walk between hallways to get to the next combat encounter, instead of, you know, taking a portal to the next floor to fight the next, you know, room of enemies. But seriously, I much prefer replaying the actual levels and trying to, you know, achieve that smoking sexy sweet, you know, S rank, that fucking juicy S rank. I much prefer replaying the actual levels and trying to S rank them all instead of just playing Bloody Palace all day. But it's fine, it's cool. It is more repetitive than DMC3 or DMC2's Bloody Palace, as in those games there's 10,000 floors and the floors and bosses were randomized, so it would always be a fresh experience. You could also advance as quickly or slowly as you wanted to, since you could advance 1 floor at a time, 10 floors, or even 100 floors. And you could even argue it's more repetitive than DMC4's Bloody Palace, even though it's pretty much the same, because you get additional characters in DMC4, that being Trish and Lady, which is just such a huge missed opportunity. I don't know how the fuck you don't put Trish and Lady in the special edition of DMC5. But yeah, the biggest problems with this game are obviously the horrible level design, the shitty realistic bland environments and realistic graphics, and also the bullet sponge enemies, which if you are playing as Vergil isn't really a problem, since he's incredibly busted, incredibly OP, incredibly fucking broken. But yeah, the bullet sponge enemies aren't that big of a problem on normal, but on hard, some of the enemies just have way too much health, such as the Hell Bats, which are these flying bat enemies that shoot fire at you, the Impusa Queens, which never fucking die and can grab you and drain half your health if you get grabbed a single time or were unlucky enough to not have your DT filled up to break out of their disgusting grasps. Proto-Angelos, which legit can take minutes to kill, especially on DMD. When they power up, they can literally go make a Thanksgiving turkey, put that shit in the oven, get everything set up, get a table set up, put all the plates and everything on the table, take out that turkey after like fucking, you know, 12 hours or however long it takes to make a fucking turkey, you know, cut it up, put it on the fucking table, you know, eat it, and then come back and you're still probably wouldn't have been able to kill one of these Nero Angelo motherfuckers because they have that much goddamn health. Annoying enemies such as Fury or Adjudicators, which just teleport around the map like retards, and behemoths just charging at you all day like a Rathian on crack. I know people shit talk a lot of the enemies in DMC3 for being bad or gimmicky, but I'd rather take most of those enemies than most of the enemies in this game, which take 500 hits to kill. But yeah, the only thing the game has going for it is the combat, but even that is hard to say it has going for it, since like I just stated, the enemies are just a chore to fight. Like there are some good enemies, obviously, but a lot of the enemies are just annoying as fuck to fight. I didn't really cover Vergil, so I guess I'll just explain him very briefly right here. He's about the same as he was in the previous games, just with some new moves. Obviously, he has the exact same weapons as he did in the previous games, that being the Mirage Blades, which is basically just Force Edge, and that's why he has a very similar moveset to Dante from DMC1, his iconic Yamato and Beowulf from DMC3, which is his gauntlets-like weapon. He also has Summon Swords, which I think you should assign to L1 so he can spam them and get the most damage with them. He can shoot them like projectiles as it acts like his gun, or you can hold it and press forward or back to summon swords around you like his shield, which is incredibly strong, and you should always have up at all times, by the way. Summon swords from the sky like rain to rain down on your enemies, or summon swords around an enemy that will shoot out and damage all the enemies around him. These summon swords use 1 DT, but that isn't really a problem as they are incredibly powerful and you'll build up your DT way faster than you'll ever expend them, and just deal insane amounts of damage, especially the one that shoots multiple summon swords all at once like a machine gun. That shit is like actually broken. But yeah, Vergil is incredibly fun to play and gets rid of all the bullet sponge enemies even on Sons of Sparta difficulty. The only problem is he defeats enemies too quickly. But yeah, Devil May Cry 5 is like a 7 out of 10 at best. I just can't rate it anything higher with all of its glaring issues and problems. I think it's easily the most overrated action game of all time, like I said prior, and I think it's just a downgrade of Devil May Cry 4 in most aspects, as I stated. I do still think the game is fun though, obviously, but the glaze this game gets is just too much. Maybe I'll make a DMC 2, 3, and 4 and even reboot review at some point. If you want that, like the video and shit, as these reviews take a long time to make. But yeah, DMC 5 is a 7 out of 10 at best.